It's Thursday, January 22nd, 2015. I'm Prince Pat.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 104. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy uses Windows 10 in its new Space Edition, and I use real augmented reality to replace the bloody worthless NSA. But we start tonight with Microsoft blowing the friggin' doors off of just about everything.
Yeah, so this Wednesday, Microsoft held their second announcement surrounding their new Windows 10 operating system. You know, the 10th iteration of Windows.
I hate all of them.
And boy, was it a doozy. So first, Microsoft, got to a soft start of talking about how many users they had on Windows 7 and Windows 8. And then they said, oh yeah, and by the way, Windows 10 is awesome and will be available for a free upgrade for Windows 8.1, Windows Phone 8.1,
expecting,
and Windows 7
right,
for the first year that it is out.
Bold move. And
on top of that, originally when Microsoft talked about Windows 10, they talked about it being kind of, their last operating system, in the sense that it would become more like a creative cloud.
A service.
A service, which is kind of something that they reiterated here.
That literally a phrase they used is this is Windows as a service.
Yeah, what they said is, they eased people into it because they didn't want to shock them. So once the device has been upgraded, Microsoft will keep it up to date with the most recent version of Windows for the life of the device. Now, that being said, when you replace the device that was running Windows 7, the new device will be running Windows 10, so it's not a problem. And then, according to Microsoft VP Terry Myerson, this is viewing Windows as a service more than a product. He's the one that said it, and he's the head of the operating systems group. Yeah. So he's making it a service. Then there's so many demos. So we started off with Windows 10 on the Surface Pro 3 in a desktop mode, showing off Cortana as a baked-in feature in the OS.
Let's reiterate, in the desktop OS.
OS.
In full Windows 10, you can now talk to your computer, your PC, and say, hey, Cortana, something.
And then all the things that you would normally do on Windows Phone. So the things that they showed off were all the typical stuff about weather and everything like
send emails.
It was basically take the Siri presentation that we all know from the iPhone 4S announcement and all the Google Now stuff and just combine them and you get Cortana.
But also they've added in desktop search function. So you can say, hey, Cortana, show me all the photos from December. Or, hey, Cortana, find me the PowerPoints about the charity auction.
Well, and then you can also do things like the example that, and not only with speech, but with typing. Mm-hmm. And Joe Belfiore was showing off that what you can do is start to type in Skype. And so it'll go, okay, well, you have a Skype app. But then it'll also serve you web results relating to what you can do with Skype.
And if you don't have Skype installed on your computer already, or whatever app you've just searched, it will link you out to the store so that you can go download it.
Right, which is something that Windows 8 already kind of does, but it's taking that Windows 8 and bringing it to the next level. But there was a lot of talk about trying to ease Windows 7 users into the Windows 10. So a Windows 7 user, me as a Windows 7 user on my current PC, you hit the start menu and you start typing for what you're looking for. And Cortana is basically all of the analytics that are behind the search that's built into the desktop.
Mm-hmm. Also, the desktop
Windows 10
now works like Windows 10, basically. So you click the Start button, the Windows flag, and a Metro-ish start menu pops up in about the same size as the Windows 7 start menu. You can
Which
click it
is
full screen.
And the click at full screen is the new feature in this upcoming build. In the original build, it was
Just a little
like
bit.
that, where you had the little start menu, and they also showed off continuity. So continuity was something that they had announced, where you can go seamlessly from on a two-in-one device from a laptop experience to a tablet experience. And they showed that off with the Surface Pro 3, and it said that in the next build that it'll work for Surfaces specifically. It will not work for any other convertibles.
Not yet.
But on Surfaces, you will be given the option that when you undock the Surface from the keyboard, it'll say, "Do you want to enter tablet mode?" A little pop-up pops up on the bottom right corner. It took about a second for it to pop up. You click it, and it full screens everything, and it gives you including Windows, as it was referred to, Win32 apps.
Yep.
So all your normal, your Photoshops that aren't necessarily optimized for the Metro interface, and any other program that predates Windows 8 that you have on your machine, it'll be scaled up to the full-size tile seamlessly. Then when you go back and you plug the keyboard back on, it'll pop up and say, "Do you want to go back to tablet mode or laptop mode?" You click that, and it puts everything back as
the desktop's back.
windowed. Yeah.
Window desktop's return. And you can drop out of tablet mode even when you're using it as a tablet, if you just want to have windowed desktop.
Yeah, you can do that. You can manually override that. But with continuity, the biggest thing that they've added is that it will detect when that is released and change what your experience is based on the form factor that you're trying to use it as. And was even showed off on an 8-inch. It looked like a Dell Venue Pro,
something like that, yeah.
8-inch device. But in addition to that, and just kind of showed that seamless switching. So, but what do we think of? Before I keep going, because there was so much to this announcement. What do we think of this part of the Microsoft announcement?
So this is probably the bit that is actually core to what they're releasing. Everything else is like, and also this, and also this. In terms of the core of what Windows 10 is, this is really important. One, it's a bold move to not have that XP problem of, Windows 7 solved the problem of Vista, but why would you really upgrade to it? It was expensive to upgrade to it, and XP worked fine. And I think people on 7 right now, you and I both use 7 in different applications. We're both in that situation of like, well, I don't really need to upgrade this computer to 8.1, but now that I can upgrade this computer for free to 10,
I will
do it. Because why not? It's a better operating system. It is modern. It'll be kept up to date. It will continue to get updates and new features, and it'll run fine on this hardware. And did I mention it's free? And so it's just a little bit of time invested in the upgrade? Sure, that's easy.
They basically looked at Apple's model of, we release our OSs for free, and within a month, we have, 75% of our users that have upgraded.
Right. Only one of our Macs is not running. Well, technically, one can't get there, and one I won't bother. Only one of our Macs is actually running the most recent one, but it's also the one that gets used all the time. It's the MacBook Pro that is currently recording this show. You'd think I would learn, having been burned by Mac upgrade problems
so many times,
but I haven't. So I part of this is just interesting in how bold they're willing to go in terms of an operating system strategy. The idea of Windows as a service, I think, is a little undefined at this point. What does that actually mean? Does that mean all future versions of Windows will just be upgraded for free?
Well, because what they said was,
you basically buy your operating system once and then keep going? Because the rest of as a service is you keep paying for it. Either through viewing of advertising, in the case of Facebook or Google, which is software as a service, or in monthly fees with Office 365 and Creative Cloud.
Now, but then you look at how OS X is, where
But they're not
Mac
pitching that
has
as
made
a
it available for
service.
free. Yeah, but I don't think that they will. I don't think they'll get away with charging a monthly service fee unless they can figure out a
Well, I
really
mean,
good
they
way to
already,
integrate it with everything else.
and they do technically on the enterprise. I mean, that's what being a
Right.
a micro, whatever the volume licensor is it's
But I
essentially a
think that
fee.
what you're seeing, I think that what you're seeing from Microsoft is they are making it so that the consumer side, okay, you know what? We want you to be on Windows. We want your
Sure.
life to be built around Windows. So here, we will give you the operating system for free. If your company
No,
has
not exactly.
if
Well,
your company
the companies they'll give you yes. If you're
no,
if
no,
you're an OEM, yeah.
I'm saying to the consumers. So they're going to give it us the upgrade for free,
Upgrade.
partially to fix their problem. But then they will also keep you up to date for the lifetime of the device. And whenever you buy a new device, most people are not building computers these days. If you build a computer, you're going to have to buy a SKU of
Trust me, I
Windows.
know. I just did. I literally
Which
just bought a
don't
SKU of 8.1.
you don't need that SKU. I have a disc for you.
Okay.
Um,
Great. I bought it because I was doing a
we'll
bulk
we'll
purchase on
verify that
Amazon.
it works, but
Right.
I think I have a disc for you. But that's neither here nor there. You don't need an OEM copy of Windows if you're buying it from HP or
Right,
Dell
but
or Microsoft.
presumably, except on Windows Phone, which is free, and except for smaller devices where Windows is free, they're going to be making money off of the OEMs buying a copy of Windows 10 to give you. So at some point, they're making money in this transaction because at some point, they're a company that sells software. Whether they sell it as a service or they sell it as a one and done, it doesn't matter. What they make money on is software. They don't want to end up in the Intel situation where they're going to pay $4 billion to people to use their chips.
Well, and but the thing to keep in mind is that Microsoft's big money maker is the enterprise, because enterprise has more money to spend on these sorts of things.
Yes.
Now, on the consumer side, their money to be made is keeping you in the ecosystem,
The Google
and
model.
keeping you, yeah, exactly.
And the
They're
Amazon
trying to
model.
keep you from jumping to Chromebooks and to MacBooks and to other devices that could replace Windows on your home PC. So they want to keep you in Windows on your home PC, but like Office, where they said, you know what, if your business is paying for Office, you can get Office for $10, one-time payment,
Sure.
which is just the marginal, like, okay, pay us something. We can't give you this for free.
Our accounting department will murder us.
If we give this away to you for free. Well, it's also just so that they can have a better accounting of, all right, these people want Office. Anyways, but I think that it'll be like Office, where you can get a cheap, okay, your company is a Windows 10 company. You can get a cheap SKU if you're doing something at home. I will bet you that that's how they're going to do it, where they give you some kind of, all right, you have a business that has X number of licenses of Windows 10, and they're paying a subscription for that. And I can tell you that our Autodesk software that we use at my office is all subscription based. We get upgraded to the next version of the Autodesk
amazing.
software every May.
That's software as a service. It's Adobe Creative Cloud. It's Office 365. It's all of these things.
Well, but but my point is that it's even services that people or softwares that people don't think about.
Right.
There's enterprise software is going to subscription basis and has been
You know
for
what's great?
years.
Annuities. You know what's great? Regular predictable income stream. It's great.
Well,
Accounting
and
departments love it.
and the business side likes it because we get the most up-to-date software, so everyone is speaking the same language and
All
we
the
don't have to
time.
worry about compatibility.
Right. Right. It's one of the
And-
the benefits of all of this, right, is that you're always in the latest version. So speaking of apps, I know one of the things they talked about is the new touch first version of Office is here.
Yeah. They showed off the touch first version of Office actually on a Lumia 1520.
Yep.
If you believe that.
And on
But-
the Dell thing.
Ooh. Yeah, on the Venue 8 Pro. So they showed off this idea of their universal apps, which is something that they've been talking about forever. But it looks like they've actually kind of gotten there, where the whole idea is that you design the app once and it'll run anywhere. And the way that they've set it up is that when you develop the app, you have to enable it. But certain aspects of the app, the kernel is one, and one of the other main pieces of the app are the same across every single platform. The only thing that really changes is the UI. So how you interact with the front end of the app is different, but the back end of the app is all the same, which is a big advantage for developers, because if there's an easy way for you to develop an app for Windows, Windows 10 for the desktop, and have it run on tablets, and have it run on phone, and have it run on Xbox One, which we'll get to here in a minute, then why wouldn't you just do it? And it's been a big play. Sony last year, or I guess 2 years ago, talked a lot about how much easier they were making it for developers to develop for the PS4. Developers can determine what platforms get what first. And so Microsoft is making a hard play for developers by giving them this tool and hoping that they'll use it. So mostly what they showed off was Office apps. They showed off. They didn't show off Excel.
They showed off PowerPoint, Word, Calendar,
and Outlook, and it was all very made a lot of sense when Joe Belfiore was showing the two next to each other.
Joe Belfiore says generally, you feel like it makes sense in the moment.
He's just like a genuine person. I really nobody dislikes him.
No one does.
So amazing at giving demos.
Yeah,
because he makes it feel very, very natural. But the other thing that might feel really natural is the death of Internet Explorer. I will announce it. It is the death of Internet Explorer.
We don't know what Project Spartan's a code name. We don't know what it'll actually be called.
They'll probably kill Internet Explorer.
I mean, it's kind of a tainted brand.
That's the thing. I think that so the thing to remember is that Windows or Internet Explorer 10 and 11 were not crap.
No,
and people still don't use them.
Right.
People are not going back to it. So what they need to do is they need to say, we have this new thing. And the biggest thing that they announced is Project Spartan. And what it does is you get the reading ability that Safari has and Chrome has and Firefox has. All these other have them. You get Cortana built in, which makes sense at this point, such that...
Okay, so I want to explain something to you. There is no difference between Cortana and Bing.
Right.
They are the same thing.
Cortana is just a fancy name for all of the stuff across.
Cortana is the voice aspect of Bing, which is hilarious because Siri is also a voice aspect of Bing. Siri and Cortana are cousins, as they are both powered by the same learning engine, which is Bing. Just so you understand this.
Right. Well, and the other thing that Cortana will give you is when you start typing in a search in the Omnibox or whatever they're going to call it, when you start typing in, let's say, weather for Houston, it'll just do a little pop down and it'll show you the card, to use the Google Now analogy, of this is what the weather is in Houston. Now with Google, even in Chrome, I have to hit enter once I start searching, it'll pop up some search results. I hit enter and it'll show me the card for my weather, which has a lot of sliders and nice little things. But this is just like that little bit sooner to serve you that information. But that's not even the most interesting thing that they announced.
The lead here.
I'm very much bearing the lead because all this stuff is stuff that exists in other browsers. Mm-hmm. The thing that they announced that is truly unique is the ability to mark up websites.
Inking with your pen.
Both with a pen and like a Surface interface, with your finger, or with a comment box like we've all seen in Microsoft Word when you're tracking changes. And then you can take that website and you can send it to people with the markups.
Or you can send it to OneDrive or OneNote with the markups.
Yeah, and so this is all just leveraging the OneDrive compatibility between all of the apps that Microsoft kind of announced a year ago, that OneDrive is the bread and butter of Well, everything. OneDrive
Private.
is the glue,
Well,
and Azure powers OneDrive.
and
I
Azure
got that.
powers OneDrive.
You,
Let's just be.
I saw you chomping at the bit there. You were like, I got this.
Azure powers the two things that are key to this, which is Bing and OneDrive. All of this
Said Azure, drink.
is built on Azure, and that's why we can talk about that. Modern Microsoft is in many ways Azure. Azure is their. That's part of why I think they can not give Windows away for free, but start to take a hit on Windows, because what's really happening is the money they can make on Azure.
Oh yeah, and the corporate applications of Azure.
Mm-hmm. Azure on-prem or Azure as kind of your fallback for your on-prems. There's all kinds of things you can do with it.
All kinds of stuff. But that's not even all of the things that they announced with apps.
God, yeah.
They also announced this whole thing with like Xbox. They brought out,
Xbox is running full Windows 10. Let's just all note this.
Xbox will be running full Windows 10, and as part of that, the Xbox division has also developed an app for Windows 10 that will allow you to. It's the Xbox One dashboard. Now, what the Xbox One dashboard will allow you to do, among other things, is record gameplay on Windows PC games,
even for games you've launched from Steam.
So the example that they used was Civ Beyond Earth,
which they launched from Steam.
They opened Steam, they launched it, we're playing, and this is just an interface that lays on top of it that will allow screen capture and will record the 30 seconds before you hit record, because you realize, you want it.
Just like when you say Xbox record that.
It's exactly the same way. It's exactly the same way that the Xbox recording works, which is awesome. In addition to that, they also announced the fact that there will be remote gameplay on Windows 10 devices, including very much like the PS Vita and Bravia TVs for Sony's PS4.
So let's clarify this. So games installed disc in your Xbox One, you can play it on any Windows 10 tablet or PC.
Yeah.
That's great. So I can be in my studio and play it on my 24-inch monitor while someone else is doing something else on the TV. I can be watching something.
No, as long as they're not using the Xbox One, I think is my understanding of that.
That's
because what it's basically doing is it's mirror casting the Xbox One to your. It's not using that exact technology, but
it's not using Mirrorcast because that's too slow. That's actually what by the way, Mirrorcast, interesting fun fact. That's what the Wii U is using.
I knew that.
The Wii U tablet is just Mirrorcast, and that's why you can only have one tablet because
there's not multiple Mirrorcast antennas in the Wii U,
and because there's no real processing in that tablet. It's how they keep the costs low, right? So it's just a dumb screen. And it's getting Mirrorcast, the actual stuff from the Wii U itself. Right. Fun fact.
But that's functionally how this is going to work. And so I think that you need the Xbox to be running, and I don't think you're basically running the game. You're just not showing it on the TV. You're showing it on your screen.
That's fine. I am absolutely fine with
So all the processing is happening on the back end. But that, although very interesting, I'm not actually sure is the most interesting thing. I think the most interesting thing is... this was specifically used for Fable, but some games will allow PC versions and Xbox One versions with players playing collaboratively or competitively against each other, regardless of what platform they're on. So you can have a PC gamer and an Xbox One gamer playing a co-op mission.
Right.
So, think about it if you had it for, Assassin's Creed. If I had it on my PC and you had it on your Xbox, we could still play.
Right. Now, this is only going to work...
That's a third-party content. That's not a first-party.
So, I think the reality is this hasn't happened earlier, partly because the PC side and the Xbox side didn't really talk to each other. But the other thing is you don't want to play first-person shooters this way. Because the people playing a first-person shooter with a controller are at a fundamental disadvantage against the people who are playing it with a mouse and keyboard. Because the mouse and keyboard is just so much more accurate, so much faster. So this won't work really for first-person shooters. This will work great for something like Fable or Assassin's Creed or other things,
or it'll work
GTA,
great for things that are co-op.
or things that are co-op, right? But in terms of competitive shooting, this is non-functional. This is a non-starter.
So what's the most interesting in here for you?
I think in terms of what I will actually use, it's the game streaming, which is kind of
Which I think is probably the thing that I will use the most as well.
It's not actually that interesting. There are tons of other companies that are doing this already. Sony's already doing this. There was a ton of
Nvidia's already doing this.
Nvidia's doing this. Razer's doing this. I mean, there's a bunch of companies that are doing this now. It just happens to be this is the ecosystem I'm in most of the time, and now it does it to a wider variety of devices than I'm used to seeing, right? So I can any of my Windows 10 devices in my house, and at that point I'm going to have like 4 of them.
Right. Well, so the other example is you could be sitting there with your Surface and playing on your Surface while someone else is watching TV.
Right.
Or you could be playing, instead of the decision that I will often make of game goes on big screen, television goes on small screen.
You can flip that equation.
You can flip that.
If you so choose. I think the real answer is still just have 2 TVs. But
yeah, that is a solution.
I think that's actually the right one. But I think that's the one that makes the most difference to me personally. In terms of the broad impact of the market, it's the bloody write once, run anywhere, right? I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, and that's the biggest thing.
I mean,
if they can actually successfully implement that, then...
So they were driving home during the presentation that it was that the phone and the tablet were executing the same code for Word. So that the 1520, the Lumia 1520 and the 8-inch tablet are both executing the same Office code. That is write once, one set of code, and enabling the different UIs within that. Now, I'm no programmer. I don't actually know how this works. But to me, I mean, that could actually start to change Windows Phone's fortune. It actually makes that a more appealing... Theoretically, anyways. Again, I'm not a developer, so I can't truly speak to this. But it starts to make Windows look more appealing than Mac, right? So if you're working within the Mac universe, you're really have to write twice. One for OS X and one for iPhone, iPad, iOS. Okay? Now, slowly those two things are merging, and if you want my bet, OS 11 from the Macintosh will do the exact same thing, where it'll be one operating system to rule them all. And I think Apple was the best place. They actually used to claim, keep in mind, when Steve Jobs first introduced the iPhone, it was running a version of OS X. That was how it was announced. It was running a version of OS X. Now, that eventually got forked and started getting called a different thing. But iOS was not what that thing was originally called. It was called OS X. So Microsoft is not the first one to make this claim, but they're the first one to really
They've really doubled down on it.
Well, they've really done it, maybe. I mean, if their claims are true, which I'm not a good one to evaluate that. But if their claims are true, they've done it. Where you can write... So let's say I am... Belkin, and I want to write a home automation app for my ecosystem of home automation products. And really, that makes sense to be on all of these platforms. I write one thing, and then I modify it a little here and a little here, and it's going to run on Xbox with voice. It's going to run on Windows 10, also with voice, because all of that's going to be Cortana now. So it's all going to be the same.
And you might as well just use it, because it's there.
Right. And so it's going to run in Cortana. If you write it right, it'll run in Cortana from the phone that's in your pocket to the tablet that's sitting on your coffee table to the laptop you're carrying with you to the desktop that's in the family room to the Xbox One that's hooked up, all with minimal amounts of work to adapt them in between. It'll
fix this problem. It'll fix this problem of, oh yeah, we have an app for this one thing, but we're still working on an app for the other 8.
Right. I mean, if this actually catches on with developers, this could be huge. It's always has been an if. And, again, there will be more conferences as the year goes on, and so we'll start to know more if this thing really is what they say it is.
But unfortunately, even though this gaming stuff is super interesting to us, it's like the smallest story and has gotten lost in the shuffle of this week because of the ridiculousness that was this announcement.
Right. And so let's get to the most ridiculous part of this. Let's just dive in there. So let me introduce this with the boldest hook. Sorry, my browser is...
You totally... Yep, there you go.
Well, my browser is not responding to... There we go. Nope. It's just not...
Open the kimono.
Shoot. What? Okay, that'll work. I'm just not going to touch anything. So let me introduce this with the boldest hook I can. In one product presentation, Microsoft made Google Glass and Oculus VR look like outdated toys. And here's how they did it. As part of the Windows 10 unveil, Microsoft introduced Windows Holographic and Microsoft HoloLens. Now, contrary to their names, they are not actually holograms, but augmented reality. Windows Holographic is a set of APIs that is already baked into every version of Windows 10, mobile on up, to output the operating system as an augmented reality interactive space that is overlaying the operating system onto your real world. So you see your Minecraft creations on your coffee table. Your Metro-style icons appear mapped to your wall. Your Skype conversations appear in floating in real space. To go along with this, Microsoft introduced HoloLens, which is a wireless augmented reality headset that is the hardware piece of moving Windows out of the computer screen and into real space. They showed a demo. They demoed a lot of things, like visualizing a design in a design meeting, or your plumber drawing a circle on a pipe over Skype, and you seeing that hovering in real space on your HoloLens headset over the real pipe that you're looking at. Microsoft has not been totally clear about the hardware behind HoloLens. It includes a quote-unquote new kind of chip called a holographic processing unit, or HPU, has no wires tethering it to a PC or to a battery pack, and has a super futuristic look that makes both Google Glass and Oculus look kind of kludgy. The craziest part of that is that we are supposed to see this product released this year.
Yeah, what they specifically said was released in the Windows 10 timetable. Time frame, that's what it was.
And so NASA has already been working with Microsoft to make a Mars augmented reality visualization app that journalists at the event were able to experience. They did a live demo modeling a 3D object. This isn't concept art. They appear to have it actually made and have it close to release. The API hooks already exist. The future is now.
Well, and I think that the most telling thing for me on this, because when you start watching, first off, the guy that presented it was so excited to present
apparently
this.
They've been making this thing underneath the visitor center for years.
Like,
they've been hiding in plain sight.
This has been under development for 5 years. And it really is now is the time to strike while the iron is hot on virtual reality and augmented reality. But the thing to remember is that all of this stuff sounds awesome, and then what always seems to happen is that people look at it, and like with Oculus even, they're like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool, but like this is kind of kludgy, and this doesn't really work that well. No, Mary Jo Foley, whose opinion as a journalist I highly respect.
Also, super skeptical, not a gamer, doesn't care about flashy things, just wants her traditional clamshell laptop and she's happy.
Yeah, you give her a netbook, the best netbook there ever was, and she would be the happiest person in the world.
Right.
That's why she loves the Surface Pro 3. But she put this thing on, apparently, and in describing it was giddy.
Right.
Her and Paul Thurrott talking about this on Windows Weekly, they were both just
podcast,
giddy. Yeah, that's another great podcast. were giddy about this device and how amazing it was to see how it worked. Like Paul throughout described, you put the HoloLens on and then you're on Mars.
Right.
There's no, like with Oculus, one of the complaints is that because of the motion sickness problems that you can have with normal just first person perspectives, Trey being a perfect example of this, is that with Oculus, it's even worse.
Because you're cut off from, you'd have no peripheral.
You have no peripheral. You can't tell that what you're seeing is not actually there and all of these things. But with this, because you're actually seeing...
You're actually seeing real world. The goggles are clear and then project the objects into real space. So you aren't cut off from the world. You can... If there's a person in the room with you, you can see them. But you then also see the
projected space.
Your projected space, your computer, your desktop, Mars.
Well, and the
Minecraft,
thing that
whatever.
Yeah, and the thing that I just lost my thread there. But anyways, this thing is amazing.
Right. And like they're going to be releasing the API that like the developer stuff, they called out developers like, we humbly invite you. If you've been writing Glass apps or if you've been writing Oculus VR stuff, that's great. Now try on the big boy thing.
And I didn't hear this in the presentation, but apparently it was a behind the scenes comment that was made where Satya Nadella saw this product. Not that many people knew about this product,
About
which
2,000 people worldwide until this announcement.
Knew about this product. And when Satya Nadella heard about it, apparently it was a very gaming focused product. And he told them that they weren't looking at it big enough, that they needed to stop thinking about it as a gaming device and start thinking about it as a UI interface for everything.
Windows, holographic.
And that's what came out of it.
And so
that is amazing.
This is literally as close as we've ever gotten to the holodeck. Now, you have to wear these goggles, and they don't look great. They would look very in vogue in Next Generation Star Trek, specifically.
Yes.
If Oculus looks very Star Wars, right, in the dirty, grimy future, where things are kind of bulgy. This is the Star Trek future of the sleek and the clean lines, and it looks either Star Trek or RoboCop. I mean,
it's got, I think, a lot of RoboCop
it's got
going.
A lot of RoboCop. It's like RoboCop's Oakleys, and it's a band that goes all the way. Again, doesn't look great. Looks better than Oculus, and does real things, unlike a Google Glass. Google Glass, obviously, much more minimalistic than this, but so this is just notifications and maps. This is like my whole Windows operating system is in the world. This is fundamentally, I don't use this a lot.
Well,
this is literally a game changer.
Well, and they made a big point of pointing out that it was not connected to a phone. It was not connected to a computer.
No wires,
it was not,
unlike Oculus.
It was not connected to anything, whereas both Google Glass and Oculus both rely on a secondary device to help do the processing.
Well, see, this is what I'm not totally clear by what they mean by that, okay?
When they say no wires, seems like
clearly it's no wires. But I don't for a second believe that all of the processing of this is happening in that headset.
No.
I think the processing for that is still happening on the phone or the tablet or the desktop. That's what I'm not clear about, is I get that it's not tethered to a battery pack, so we have no idea what the battery life is on this thing. Presumably not great. And we know that it's not like physically hooked up by a USB 3 or whatever, USB-C or any of that. So something is happening wirelessly, but we don't know, or at least wasn't clear from the presentation, because again, we weren't physically there, so we couldn't ask these questions of Microsoft. Maybe other journalists have, and I just couldn't find their reports. But we don't know how all of this processing is happening. If this is the HPU, but it's still relying on the CPU and GPU on another device, that's my bet. Because this isn't bulky. I mean, this is, like if I took my headphones, if my headphones went all the way around my head and had a screen that came down, and that's about the size that it looks like. I mean, it has 3D audio, so you get a sense of space with your audio as well. But I'm not totally clear on how this works as a piece of hardware.
Yeah, and I don't think that that'll be clear until later on in the year when we get more specific specs and release date.
So something that is slightly less futuristic, but possibly more comprehensible, Microsoft announced the Surface Hub, an 84-inch 4K touchscreen, wall-mounted,
Sounds good to me.
all-in-one computer.
Wait, what?
It's designed to replace the whiteboard and the projector in meeting rooms. The device supports multiple pen inputs at the same time, will accept wireless and wired connections from other devices to show slides and content, and, since it's like a computer, can show content from installed apps, like Autodesk or Adobe Premiere. It's tightly integrated with Skype and OneNote. The notes that you take digitally on the digital whiteboard can be uploaded and shared straight to OneNote. And if you take notes during a Skype conference, everyone will automatically see through Skype for Business. Will see the whiteboard, and then will be emailed a copy of the notes at the end of the meeting.
And not only that, if there's any presentation content that was used on the device, that'll all be emailed as well. Right. This is very much like a hub for
you don't say. For your office.
For your office.
So this way, no one will ever, and they kept saying this over and again, no one will ever have to take a picture of their whiteboard again. I want this in my office right now. This, to me, this is the dream of what all of these kind of whiteboard-ish computers have been going towards, right? Your smart board. Because I used to think I wanted a smart board, but that was super kludgy. It was a projector, and it was those stupid markers, and people liked it, but it wasn't great. It was really weird to interact with. So I thought I wanted one of those, and it turns out, no, this is what I want. Now, they say it's going to be priced so that one can be in every office, but what does that mean?
No, so the thing is that, and we've seen this move in my industry in the last couple of years, in new build-outs, people are not putting in projectors anymore. TVs have gotten to a sufficient size that people are just like, why would I put in a freaking projector?
Certainly what we did in the new building in Emory.
Exactly.
It's all televisions.
Because you don't have to worry about the bulbs burning out. Like, there's a lot of bad things about projectors. Also, they're really bulky and ugly, and people can walk in front of them.
Well, and they require like distance and mounting of the ceiling, and
yeah, but
makes them difficult to service. We've developed a special finger tool that we can use to poke and reset the projector. It's really high tech.
Very nice.
It's literally a mannequin finger on a stick. Stan, the guy I work for, is genius that he developed this technology. But that shows the kludginess of projectors.
But so the advantage of Surface Hub is that you then go from, okay, instead of having this thing mounted on the ceiling that is then projecting on the screen on the wall, you went to a TV. Well, to connect to the TV, you still had to run all of the wires out of it and hook it up to some kind of console somewhere in the room. Now, theoretically, with a Surface Hub, So you
just have Miracast to it, and Miracast
you have
is now
thing
baked into Windows 10.
Yeah,
and it will accept wired connections, but it itself is the hub. You don't have to hook up into another PC. It is a PC.
Right. You presumably on the edge of the thing, and you can't tell from the presentation. And we'll get more specs on this thing later. I will bet you that there are a bunch of USB ports on one side.
USB ports and HDMI's and maybe even VGA's.
That most of the ports are probably all on one side, so that you can connect in. Oh, it's probably all of it. DisplayPort, everything.
Right. And then it'll accept all of these wireless things, and also it will run its own applications. So if you want to just open your own PowerPoint in your OneDrive and show it just on that device, again, it's a real computer. It's not a dumb display. Which just makes me think this is going to be tremendously expensive.
Right, but I think that it's not going to be outside of the it's outside of the realm of you and I.
Sure.
But it's not outside of the realm of companies.
Right.
I think that you will see a lot of these in large conference rooms to start with.
Yeah.
where someone will come in and say, well, we could just do one of these. Um,
But that also means in 10 years, my little dinky production company will be able to get one of these.
Less than that,
I
probably
will
5 years.
spend the money. If I am ever specking out an office in the next couple of years, that's just going to be a non-negotiable. I want this thing. I actually, honestly, and this is going to sound crazy because I think HoloLens is changing the world. I want this more than HoloLens.
I want this more than HoloLens too.
Because with HoloLens, here's the thing. HoloLens is going to be really great, but like Oculus, there's going to be some narrowness to it. It shows a lot of people like waving their arms in the air to do design tasks. Now, you and I both do design tasks. Jimmy, how many hours a day do you spend doing design tasks?
9 to 10.
Well, on my days when I'm doing design work, that's similar numbers. I'm not going to wave my arms in the air for 9 to 10 hours. I'm going to want to be able to interact with something resting my arms on my desk or on my lap. But for reviewing the thing after we've designed it for review meetings, oh my God, you
More
can see it in
importantly,
real space.
You think it's bad when your laptop runs out of power and you got to plug the thing in. You think when your Holo headset that runs for an hour runs out of power and and it starts heating up. Like, no, that's just really bad. What people that are not involved in design do not understand is the fact that as a design person, I took Logitech's business grade mouse and I wore it out in a year and a half.
Right.
Like I click way more than normal people.
I've shattered 2 touchpads on my MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Okay? Shattered the glass on them. I had to pry one up with a pocket knife so I could keep editing a documentary on the floor of the National Institute of Health in Paraguay. And so I'm not going to wave my arms in the air for that many hours a day. Like, when I'm in the middle of crunch on a project, I will edit for like 36 hours at a go. No! But if I am reviewing a 3D object that we have designed, oh my God. So one of the demos promo things was like, it's a shop that's designing a motorcycle, and they have like the physical motorcycle shell sitting there, and like, I designed a new tank, and then you see the tank appear digitally in HoloLens and the little tweak, and you go, oh my God.
They're kind of like, let's move this up a little bit. Yep, that's where it is.
Yeah, that kind of stuff I think it's perfect for.
And then other people can look at it and assuming it's all synced
Yes.
wirelessly, then it goes, other people go, oh, okay.
Yep.
I mean, think about HoloLens for design brainstorming sessions.
Right. But again, it's not, so this is just how we're going to interact with all computers all the time. No, I mean, maybe if there's a keyboard and mouse or something, or an interface where my arms don't have to be up in the air.
No, the advantage of a keyboard, I mean, I guess, no, I need the tactileness of a keyboard.
Well, you could do some of the keyboard stuff you could do via voice.
Right, that's true. And a mouse.
Right, but I need some, again, and there was a lot of voice stuff integrated with it, but you need something where in order to manipulate objects, I don't have to be waving my arms in the air. And that's the advantage. And that's why the mouse has endured longer than anyone thought it would.
Well, the other thing is that it's more precise.
Yeah. Currently,
at some point, when you're doing this, yeah, you can get it pretty precise. But until I can take a ruler or whatever and like make a line that's exactly straight.
Or for me, I can find a very exact cut point. And I have to find very exact cut points. And I have to spend a lot of time getting my cut points right. It's just not... Speaking as like creative professionals, this is just not in the production side of where we are. Not there. In the rest of it, for demos. Demos and meetings and that kind of stuff. I think.
Well, and the one example that was showed is you're wearing it and you want to print something on a 3D printer. And you're trying to decide how big you want it,
right?
And it shows you in dollar signs how
much that would cost,
how much a cost it'll be, and you kind of go, "Yeah, that's right there." So I could see it as something like if you were going to redo your house.
Oh yeah.
It'd be great for that.
Or the Mars stuff. I'm not
This thing has lots of applications that are
I'm
awesome.
really bullish on this technology. I just want to remind them, just like I remind Apple and its iPad ads, no one's doing it that way. For a reason. And it's not because we're curmudgeonly and don't like tech. Most creative professionals use more technology than your average person. But there's a we need high
We leverage
precision.
as much of the technology as we can.
Right, but we need high precision for many hours. And waving your arms in the air and tapping in an iPad is just not that.
Well, and it's design professionals that have dictated why the stylus on the Surface Pro 3 is as precise as it is.
Yeah. It is totally our fault.
Because if it was not that precise, it would be worthless.
Right. So speaking of worthless, so you know how I said that the U.S. government has probably had information that we didn't know, and that led them to publicly conclude that North Korea had hacked Sony? Remember when I said that?
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
Had more information? Okay, well, thanks to a new Snowden leak, we may have a window into exactly what that other information was. The German newspaper Der Spiegel published a Snowden document where the NSA claims to have deeply penetrated North Korea's hacker infrastructure as early as 2010. In addition, the New York Times has a large write-up using that document and other anonymous sources that conclude that indeed the NSA had deep access to North Korea's Unit 121, which is their hacking force of about 6,000 people that operates both within North Korea and within China. And it was that information from that deep-level hack and malware stuff that led them to conclude that, yes, it was North Korea that attacked Sony. Now, I'm suspicious on two levels. One, if they had so much access since 2010, why couldn't they prevent the attacks on South Korea in 2013 or Sony in 2014? If indeed they had so much access, what good are these hackers if they cannot prevent an attack? If they can, all they can do is prove something after the fact. They are merely vastly overfunded digital cops and not some mighty cyber force. How can they justify their existence if they had this access and failed to be able to put it to use? 2. Glenn Greenwald, the journalist who broke the Snowden leaks, writes in No Place to Hide that the NSA would be better off with targeted collection rather than their collect all the things attitude. I think this bears this out. If they weren't so bogged down with yours and my metadata, maybe they could have done something about the actual attacks that happened under their nose within a network they had already penetrated.
Yeah, my only question would be, it's possible that the North Koreans figured out that their network had been penetrated and did something to seal up the holes.
But that can't be the case, or they wouldn't have been able to trace it back in the first place. I think they're just overwhelmed with too much stuff, that they can't pay attention to this thing that actually mattered, this actual hack attack that happened. Or they just let Sony get hit. And what is that like?
Well, and South Korea get hit. Well, and I don't think that they let. I think that I would be.
Some of the statements implied that maybe they did. Now, maybe they're covering their ass and trying to make it seem like they knew more than they did. Half of me thinks this is a actual from the government leak, that they want to make it seem like they're more powerful than they really are. Which, if you read Glenn Greenwald's book, you will end up thinking these kind of thoughts. But this smells to me like the government trying to say, oh yeah, no, we totally knew. No, we knew. We were just covering it up. We knew. Maybe. And if they did, I don't think they've really thought this through, because if they knew and couldn't prevent it, why are we giving up our liberty to these people?
Right. Well,
what good are they?
That's true.
If the argument is that they can prevent terrorism, they didn't. And it wasn't like they didn't have access to this network, apparently. They were in, and they couldn't prevent the attack. So then what's the friggin' point? What is it? Like, the one success that we can knock up to metadata that we know of is the Osama bin Laden attack, right? And that was targeted. That was one dude. That wasn't bulk metadata collection. That was one dude. Why do we collect all the things? Why did we hack North Korea? We have yet to benefit from it. They couldn't stop the two major attacks. One shut down banks and television stations in South Korea. The other shut down Sony. Like, what the hell?
I mean, you could make the argument that, certain nuclear programs of North Korea's all of a sudden hit major stumbling blocks shortly thereafter.
I mean, that certainly happened in Iran. Yeah.
And so
Stuxnet took out Iran. Well, I get it. I'm not saying they're without successes, but again, they had penetrated this network, and yet they couldn't prevent two major cyber terrorism attacks.
Right. Well,
that's not a great record if you're claiming that you are doing all of this so that I am safe against the bad guys. Right? That's the claim.
No, yeah, I agree with you.
They now have two major failures on their hands because they were in this network and they didn't stop them. This is shameful. And, but again, the Iran stuff is not the bulk stuff. That's targeted. But I think they're so wading through the bulk stuff of all of the metadata from all of the phone calls in the United States.
Well, there's also the fact that it could have been that their penetration of the network in 2010 was a targeted attack.
It is. No, absolutely. It is absolutely
for something, for a specific purpose. And once that purpose was exhausted...
Now, the document makes it sound like they owned the network. That they had an ongoing presence in the network, and that's how they're able to trace it back now. That they had an ongoing presence in the network. So yeah, that was a targeted attack. And so in 2010, we can call this a success. But I think they're so distracted with all the stuff that is not bearing any fruit that they're not actually paying attention to this targeted thing that could actually make a difference.
They have a big data problem.
They have a big data problem. And it's self-created big data problem, and they've fundamentally screwed the Constitution in the name of they're creating this big data problem that has made them ineffective as an agency.
Right.
Like, this is out of control. When they couldn't prevent an attack from a network that they had owned. Like, what are we doing? Really, what are we doing? Also, what are we doing? What is Amazon doing? What are they doing?
No, they're out of their damn minds. So Monday, Amazon announced that they will be producing original feature-length movies.
Okay. Yeah.
For theaters.
What?
And then releasing them to Prime users 4 to 8 weeks later.
Which is a much shorter interval.
So, in Amazon's shortest press release ever, apparently their goal is to produce 12 movies per year, beginning production later this year. And they say that, quote, Amazon original movies will focus on unique stories, voices, and characters from top and up-and-coming creators, end quote. So, this is crazy. So, Trey, do you think that a model similar to this could catch on for new content, and could the days of paying $12 per person to see a movie rapidly be disappearing?
I think this all fundamentally misunderstands what movies are for. There seems to be only one company in the industry right now that truly understands what movies are for, and that's Disney. Disney gets it. Disney understands that if you produce movies, and they're the ones making like $1 billion per Avengers movie, right? So you create content that is so much better in a theater that you have to see it that way, right? That it'd be okay to see it at home, but that cinema-going experience is worth it. I think all of these other things that, your intense dramas and your, psychological thrillers, if it's not a big done action movie or a Disney animated thing, I just don't think those aren't going to be in the cinema anymore. I think we'll all just watch those on Prime. I won't go to the theater to see those. You have to make it an event. And that's what Disney has mastered. The
other thing that Disney has mastered is they make so much money after the fact.
Well, yeah. But what I mean, people they make money at the box office, right? Not just in merchandising. It's not just merchandising. Disney gets theirs on a lot of levels. But let's just look at the movie division of Disney. Let's not even worry about the merchandising and the theme parks and the
all the
breakfast
rest.
cereal and all of that. Let's not even worry about the video games. None of that. Let's just look at the theater. People go and see Marvel movies in the theater. People are going to go to Star Wars in the theater. And that's because that theater going thing is a fundamentally better. You have the sound that's better, the much bigger picture, and those kind of movies benefit from that. People are like, why are the only thing that gets made are superhero movies? Because that's the only thing that's going to make money at the box office.
Because everything else people have decided they're not going to go watch.
Why am
and
I
I know
going
I
to go
make
to a
that
movie?
decision.
Why am I going to go to a theater to watch Hot Tub Time Machine 2, an actual upcoming film? That's going to be just as fine on my 50-inch television at home, really. Cheaper and easier, right? Great. That's why, like, high-production television does so well, right? Mad Men is cinema quality in terms of how it's shot and its costumes and all of that. Like, you get these really cinema-quality television experiences because TVs are so good now that those are just as good at home.
Right.
On my relatively inexpensive surround sound, it looks great, sounds great. Don Draper looks sharp. Always looks sharp.
Sharply dressed
He
man.
gets his too. So I wonder. I think Amazon's pretty smart because I think this does create a future for feature-length films as this nearly simultaneous release. I will be in the cadre of people that will mostly watch these online, but Amazon's going to get money from me.
Right. Well, I think that this is Amazon's way of releasing full-length movies without fully snubbing their nose at the MPAA.
Sure. Which they don't really care about because Amazon could buy the MPAA.
Well, they only care about it for licensing reasons, so they can keep their movies licensed. I'm sure that the backroom deal on this was Amazon wanted to do like simultaneous release, and the MPAA said no.
Right. I'm sure that's what that is.
That's why you have that delay.
But I am of the opinion that movies are not dead. Right?
No.
They're just different.
Movies as content are not dead. The way that we consume that content is different.
I don't think movie theaters are dead, but I think movie theaters become like plays, right? Where you go for these very special things. Your Star Warses, your Avengers.
You're already seeing that because in the high-end movie theaters, you reserve a seat.
Right. And they spend a lot money. They buy Dolby Atmos, and they, or the Rumble seats, or they're the dine-in movie, which is what Sydney and I do a lot, is dine-in movies.
Yeah, I like dine-in movie a lot.
There's a place called Cinebistro here in Atlanta. It's a chain that is like gourmet food in the movie theater. It's expensive. So, I'm paying like $100 between dinner and the movie, but I might have spent that money anyways.
Well, and my thing is, I'm a big fan of Alamo Draft House.
Yeah, which is a
a
little cheaper. More accessible.
It's more accessible.
It's more accessible.
The food is pretty decent.
All right. Yeah.
And they have a no talking policy that I can totally get behind.
Right.
So
I think those kind of things are the future of cinema. The event viewing, the best in theaters. And we all need to shift our expectations about how other types of content gets produced. The thoughtful dramas are now television shows. I don't think they're movies anymore. I think they're just television shows. And they were always better as television shows because you can do more with the story. You can make it a lot more of a thoughtful drama when you have 5 seasons of a show. Let's look at Mad Men. Let's look at Game of Thrones. Not really a thoughtful drama, but you get my point.
It's a drama.
It's a drama. The future of that kind of stuff is in television. And so, yeah, we're seeing fewer of them as movies. And I get that. But we haven't lost dramatic content. It's just shifted.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying, you look at the example of, like, trying to squeeze every last penny out of these movies of, like, The Hunger Games, Part 1 and 2. Hobbit, Part 8 through 15.
Hobbit, I'm sorry, that's just a terrible idea. The amount of movies is the same length as the audiobook. Yep. Literally. 12 hours. So the audiobook's 12 hours. That's basically 12 hours with a movie. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid. The Hobbit drives me crazy.
Yep. But, it'll start to prevent things like that happening where it's like, okay, if this truly warrants you making it longer, do it as a miniseries.
I think Hunger Games should have been an HBO special, HBO show. I think that's where Hunger Games belong, because part of Hunger Games is staying with it longer. I think books to movies need to become books to HBO or books to AMC, because that way you can sit with it longer. Imagine what it would have been like if we had a weekly Harry Potter television show in the same way that we have Game of Thrones. I think Game of Thrones is absolutely the model of how to do book series in this world where televisions are good enough for that kind of content.
Well, you just wait 5 to 10 years and see if you have a Harry Potter series.
If I get that, oh my God, that would be.
It could happen.
I mean, if it's on.
Because think of how long ago the first movie came out.
Yeah,
I mean, it was something like 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 2001.
Yeah,
it was pretty early in the digital era, because those effects are terrible.
No, yeah, they're really bad. But I would not be surprised if we see something.
I think Harry Potter is perfectly set up for a television show. I thought it was never set up for a movie. Too many things happen, and the joy of those books, of books, is how long
the nuances
sit and how long you sit with those characters. You really gain meaning with them,
and you get to know the characters, and so yeah,
and you see Marvel's experimenting.
So
with
the
this.
Future of cinema is not in books.
Well, no, the future of cinema. The future of some cinema is in television. The future of some cinema is television. Full stop. And then individual cinemas will become bigger and fewer of them. They will all have IMAX and Atmos and rumble seating, because they will be event spaces. They will be the place you go maybe twice a year, but when you go, you go. You book your seat.
And the other thing is, you will always have places like Alamo Drafthouse. And one of the things that Alamo Drafthouse makes lots of money on is they'll do various different special events during the week. And those are very well attended.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, not even things like that.
Team America World Police.
They do like quote-alongs for cult classics. Yeah. They do Master Pancake Theater is what they call it. They serve pancakes.
Sweet. Yeah.
I'm all about pancakes.
Sure. Yeah.
But all of my friends that live in Austin, like, they keep heavily in, they follow, okay, what's at Alamo Drafthouse? What are the special events this month?
Right.
And they go to them, much in the same way you would go to a small boutique theater in your area.
Right. And what I see it as is that theaters become like concert halls, or like, convention centers, where you don't have that many of them, because you don't need that many of them. But it's a big deal to go, and they are a big deal, and they are a sizable investment. But I think the days of just chains of theaters and malls is done, because that's just not how this content works. Something else about how content will work in the future is this week's last call. Which, as is becoming a theme, is really space.
Space, the final frontier.
So Trey, I think it's safe to say, other than Microsoft, our two favorite things as a podcast are space and the internet.
Yes.
Yeah. So the only thing that is better than those two things separately is what Elon Musk announced. Well, not really announced.
He's just Elon Musk.
Or Elon Musked it up and said that he has a venture to create a second internet in space.
Oh, God.
So this venture doesn't yet have a name like, Hyperloop or anything interesting, or SpaceX. But we do know that it would involve hundreds of satellites orbiting at about 750 miles above Earth, which, for reference, is significantly closer than the 22,000 miles that traditional communication satellites orbit at. And this internet, it would be fast, like rivaling fiber optic cables on land fast.
Jeez.
Like, according to Elon Musk, quote, the speed of light is 40% faster in the vacuum of space than it is for fiber. The long-term potential is to be the primary means of long-distance internet traffic and to serve people in sparsely populated areas, end quote. The example that was specifically used in the Business Week article was, let's say you're sending something from LA to South Africa. And instead of it having to go through all of that series of fiber optic cables, it'll just go up into space, take the most direct route through the satellites, and go straight back down to South Africa. And then, he wants to extend the system to Mars because he's going to set up a colony there in the future.
10 years from now.
And, of course, this system is going to take like lots of years and cost something like $10 billion to build. But this is all going to be funded on the backs of his SpaceX program, which this week also got $1 billion in funding from a combination of Google and Fidelity.
Right. Partly, we think Google is interested specifically in this internet business. Because, look, Google, when fiber was the business, Google bought up the fiber. And this is better than fiber. Or the potential to be better than fiber. This
has the potential to be huge. And Google looks at $10 billion and goes, we could do that.
This was $1 billion. Right now, we don't know how much they poured in, a few $100 million. But again, Google has the resources to do it. And what I would love to see is a space bidding war between Google and Apple. Because they're the ones with the real money to do all of this, right? I mean, Apple could literally snap its fingers, release 10% of their cash holdings and fund this whole thing.
The other fascinating thing about this whole kind of talk about Elon Musk here is that there's another guy, the guy that originally brought 3G to Rwanda 15 years ago, who's a personal friend of Elon Musk, that's trying to launch a similar system to this, that's just going to be slightly like... I think Elon Musk described it that, we have a difference of opinion on this. I want it to be one step more advanced than he does, or something along those lines. Like, basically, Elon Musk is like, why settle for something second rate when we can do something awesome? Like,
right. Well, okay. If he can actually do something awesome, he's absolutely right. The issue is you got to pull it off.
Here's the quote. So the person is Greg Weiler of O3B. He says, quote, Greg and I have a fundamental disagreement about the architecture. We want a satellite that is an order of magnitude more sophisticated than what Greg wants. I think there should be two competing systems.
Sure.
So, and Greg Weiler already has like funding and of like $2 billion. And he hopes to have it all up and running by 2018. So like this space race is on.
This could happen. This cool.
We will go to the moon in this decade and do many other things.
Not because they're easy, but because they're hard.
You gotta get the New England.
It's hard. It's kind of, you gotta, yeah. So on that note, we should probably get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us in this was a crazy news week edition of Text Last Call. If you have any feedback for us, podcast@textlastcall.com, facebook.com/textlastcall, pinterest.com/textlastcall, or at textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. This isn't some concept art as the show title.
Yeah.
Or they appear to have actually made it.
I like this isn't some concept.
This isn't some concept art.
Hololens dash this isn't some concept art.